There's no decision been made about is there going to be such a thing as a last gig. We're just going to carry on and see how it goes.
I'm not.
You're not going to guarantee it.
No. It's about 2 years away, I think. It's a 2-year tour and an album, but I think it's about time. It's been put forward that we should call it a day, and so therefore we decided to have a band meeting, and we had too much wine, so we didn't really have a decision at the end of it, and so the goodbyes are going to be a bit longer than your average. It's like getting rid of unwanted guests, really, after Christmas.
It could be next week, don't want to do it, or it could be in 3 years' time, or whatever.
Or when any one of us just decides to...
Keel's over.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
It came out of about 3 or 4 writing sessions. We have sort of jamming sessions where we have a bit of fun and play, and sometimes a bit of music appears that interests us, that might become a song. And it's actually, that's the fun part. It's all fun, actually.
The hard thing is when you start the writing process, you have lots of ideas. And the first 2 or 3 days, you bang, 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 bang. And they're all strong ideas, you know, because they've been building up. Then it gets a little more difficult, because then you're having to create new ideas. And sometimes you start accepting ideas just because you did them, not that they're particularly good. And that's the hard point, when you have to start becoming cruel to yourself, say, well, it's okay, but it's not as good as we did before. So that's the hard bit. But it's fun coming up with new music. It's fun coming up with something. You look at each other and everybody's smiling. And that's great.
In a way, whatever we do becomes us, becomes Deep Purple. There's no kind of formula or sound that we're aiming for. We're just aiming to please ourselves musically.
It's all about human chemistry, really. I think when you get a bunch of guys together that have been together as long as us, there's no category other than Deep Purple for us. And it's like a bunch of guys that meet together in the pub or in the office or at home with relatives or whatever it might be. And you talk about this, you talk about that, and it's always a fresh conversation, even though the theme may be vaguely continuous or connected with the past. There's always a fresh element to it. And so, you know, that's what you do when you go to the pub. It was a turning point, wasn't it? It was a big turning point, because working with Bob, he said something very interesting when we were talking, before we even worked together. He said, I would like to see you guys doing what you used to do, not in terms of the way you play your music, but the way you approach your music. And that is, if you find something good and you want to extemporize upon a theme, you do it. On the first 3 albums I was with, the band and Roger, there were only 7 tracks on each album, and some of them were quite long, 7 minutes, 8, 10 minutes long. And the reason was that there was the music was a good vehicle to have extended pieces on. And the construction, the orchestral elements, or the soloists and the rhythmic drive were all developed until it reached a natural end, instead of being compressed into those 3-minute things. I think during the Middle Ages, if you like, or you know, between in the 80s and 90s, there was a tendency, as we produced ourselves, to kind of think of the radio element. Going back to Smoke on the Water, that was 7 minutes long on Machine Head. No one heard it apart from the live crowds, and it wasn't until somebody came along to a gig in LA and heard the audience reaction to it that they thought, yeah, this would be good, play on the radio. So they cut it down to 3.5 minutes or 3.25 minutes. We were never any good at making pop songs. I mean, it really, Deep Purple is primarily an instrumental band, and that's what we should do. And that's what Bob was saying with Now What. He said, let's just relax and extend your stuff. I'll tell you when it's getting too much, but just enjoy yourselves with the music. And so the old way of approaching construction came back, and everything got a little bit more exciting again, I think, because it was allowed to flow freely. And I think that showed instantly in Now What. It was a big difference to previous records. which I love the other stuff as well. But this was definitely a major milestone as far as we were concerned. And so this, I think, this inFinite record is a natural extension of that. It's not the same, but it's walking along the same path.
Since we did Perfect Strangers back in '84, it was no thrill from being in the studio. It's just one of the things you do. From making the Now What record in a great studio and everything working the way it should and everything being easy, recording became fun again. And that continued using the same situation on inFinite. It just felt right, it felt easy, it felt good. But in the past, we put ourselves in situations where it was almost impossible to make a record, you know, making life difficult for ourselves. So for me, it's been a revelation the last 4 or 5 years, just enjoying being in the studio and listening to the first 1 or 2 takes and going, wow, that sounds good, you know.
Being in Nashville as well was a tremendous spur to us all, because it's such a centre for music that it's kind of missing now. You know, London used to be like that, but there's no music anywhere anymore, really.
No, New York's gone, LA's gone.
It's all gone, but Nashville is absolutely throbbing, so it kind of rubs off on you. And everybody in the studio was so enthusiastic, and they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
As Ian said, you know, they knew how to record a band, you know, the lost art of.
Yeah.
And to hear the tracks back. You know, in the old days with tape, you'd record something in a studio terrified. The red light went on. And you play, and then you go in and they'd say, come in and listen. And when you listen back, you could hardly believe it was you. What have they done to it? You know, tape. It was so exciting. And we were getting that in Nashville. Same thing walking into here. Where is that us? Well, it was great.